President, I rise today to make a contribution on the debate on Gambling Taxation Bill 2023 and the Gambling Regulation 2023. These bills are the last in a long process of amendments that we, the Andrews Labor government, have put forward to address the findings of the Finkelstein Royal Commission into the casino operator and licence. These findings highlighted a stark need for improvement in law surrounding gambling in Victoria. This legislation comes from careful consideration of innocent third parties that would have been implicated in the immediate removal of Crown's casino's licence. Whilst Crown must face the consequences for their disregard of the principles of fairness within the Victorian economy, other groups and individuals ought not negatively be affected in their punishment. An estimated 12,000 were in the line, and considering the strong values of fairness we hold, it was considered a better course of action than a greater community that the licence not be immediately cancelled. In such matters of severity, the Labor government will always act effectively and as quickly as possible to address the harm that such behaviour poses to the greater community in a way that meaningfully protects stakeholders in the situation. We take these infractions against the important laws of Victoria very seriously, and they denigrate the quality of our society. These laws exist for a purpose of protecting the balance of our society. Without regulation against criminals and criminal behaviour, our world would fall into absolute chaos. To this effect, the Andrews Labor government is taking such high degrees of unlawfulness very, very seriously. The list of neglected acts or neglectful acts committed by the Crown Melbourne are long and deeply disappointing. To think an institution that is so iconic to the City of Melbourne would continue to have such a blatant disregard for our laws despite multiple punitive fines being issued over the past several years really goes to give you a real feeling of disappointment. The silver lining in the millions upon millions of dollars fined to Crown Casino Melbourne last year alone does not at least mean that the body of bills amending gambling regulation, this being the fourth of those bills, are in fact doing what they are supposed to do, addressing the predatory business operation and culture that seems to have cemented itself in Crown Melbourne. The infringements that warranted Crown being issued with the fines are extensive. Their range from severely breaching their code of responsibility to responsibility delivering on gambling services to the deeply concerning evidence that Crown Melbourne have been implicated in the money laundering schemes. Taxation matters are serious. Taxes are how the responsible government, like the Andrews Labor government, funds programs to give back to the community. Taxes are how we ensure hospitals and schools run, how we keep our state running, and how we do what matters. Taxes are also indicative of the community Victorians have built. They are how we make sure that governments can take care of those who are in need to be taken care of. To think that multi-million-dollar organisations would think that is above the most basic obligation that productive members of society fulfil is disappointing to say the least. $60 million, that is the sum of tax that Crown Casino denied Melbourne and the Victorian people. The hard-working people of my electorate in Southern Metro, the hard-working residents of every other regional represented in this room. That is money that could have gone towards schools, hospitals and roads. It could have been used to better our society and do what matters, but it was hoarded by Crown. Their implications in the illegal act of money laundering is also not lost on this government. We are a government that takes crime very, very seriously, thanks to our fine Minister for Police and Crime Prevention, my friend in the other place, Minister Carbines. This is why, when it was discovered that Crown Melbourne was operating its gambling service in such a manner that the act of money laundering was easily conducted at Crown's casino facilities, it was a case for much concern and immediate call to action. The Victorian Gambling Casino Control Commission discovered that from 1994 up until 2021, nearly 3 decades, the casino accepted bank cheques in exchange for the issuing of chips without clearing the cheque. This policy of theirs is deeply concerning due to how easily it facilitates the laundering of money acquired by illegal means. It also allowed for large proportions of money to be laundered at South Bank venue, which led to the VGCCC to conclude that Crown Resorts is no doubt implicated in serious organised crime operations. Additionally, Crown facilitated legal money transfers of the sum of $160 million with the use of the China Union Bank. Investigation into Crown Melbourne also discovered that the casino has in many instances blatantly disregarded their obligations in the responsible delivery of gambling services. One instance so neglectful that it made itself to the media with a practice in which, despite being equipped with a thorough and competent monitoring system, customers of Crown were allowed to gamble for up to 24 hours straight. The Commissioner of the Victorian Gambling and Casino Control Commission is quoted saying, "For a long time, Crown had promoted itself as having the world's best approach to a problem gambling. Nothing could be further from the truth. Problem gambling is a serious issue facing modern Victoria. The prevalence of such predatory means of gambling as electronic gambling machines or EGMs is a concern that hangs heavily on the Andrews Labor government. The Andrews Labor government took swift and strict action in recognition of the recommendations set forward by the Finkelstein Royal Commission and subsequent report. A special manager, Stephen O'Brien, KC, who was appointed in June or July of 2022, has overseen the operations of Crown Melbourne to ensure that their organisation is held to the highest of regulatory standards and that they may not be allowed. When O'Brien's stint as the Special Manager comes to an end date that is outlined in the Casino and Gambling Legislation Amendment Act 2021, Crown Melbourne's licence to operate a casino in Victoria will lapse. That is, unless the VGCCC sees that the operators of Crown Melbourne are fit to continue their operation in Victoria. As the fourth instalment of the Andrews Labor government's gambling fraud reforms, this Gambling Taxation Bill 2023 will ensure that Victoria is a state that truly backs fairness and lawfulness. A tax legislation is one of the best ways to ensure that our state stays as fair as it should be, and it is time that gambling taxes reflected that. This money will go into important projects that are going to improve Victoria, money that is rightfully owed to the Victorian people. This money will go towards our broad commitments to health and schools as we go to work doing what matters. And of the recommendations in the Royal Commission pertains to the appropriate course of action when addressing a casino operator's non-payment of tax. The penalty fine issued to those casino operators in breach of their tax requirements has been increased from $1 million to some $100 million. This is a fine much more appropriate to the predatory and offensive crimes that would have been committed to warrant the receiving of such a fine. Or perhaps in an ideal world, would-be criminals would get the message that this is a government and a state that takes such infractions very seriously. This is a jurisdiction where you cannot hide. The bill also addresses the division of the roles, responsibilities and structures relating to the administration and gambling-related tax, mostly consolidating these figures to the Commissioner of State Revenue and subsequently the State Revenue Office. This bill will establish the responsibilities of over-regulation falling under the portfolio of the Commission of State Revenue rather than the VGCCC, allowing for more informed level of expertise overseeing the tax matters of Crown and the other casino operators. This will be executed by bringing casino tax arrangements under the umbrella of the Tax Administration Act 1997. This is on the recommendation of the Finkelstein's Royal Commission findings. The Tax Administration Act 1997 offers a standard set of provisions surrounding tax referenced in other acts. It's sometimes a one-stop shop for tax administration overseen by the State Revenue Office. The level of specialist expertise and knowledge used for the scrutiny that Crown will be subject to will surely mean that we will never see the likes of such offensive disregard for our state's taxation laws will not be seen again, or at least for a long, long time. The obligations outlined under casino tax legislation pertaining to the casino tax currently lie in the Casino Management Act 1993, also known as the Management Agreement Act. This stipulates that tax must be paid on all electronic gambling machines and table games, in addition to commission received from commission-based players. At this moment, this falls under the administration of the Victorian Gambling Casino Control Commission due to the casino tax legislation's current placement in the Management Agreement Act. The Royal Commission recommends the establishment of a new Gambling Taxation Act, under which the casino tax will lie, therefore transferring the administration of the casino tax to the State Revenue Office and under the responsibilities of the Commissioner for State Revenue, effectively July the 1st, 2023. The bill will also greatly equalise the nature of the casino and the club taxes. Effective July the 1st, 2023, casino and club taxes in the revenue from electronic gaming machines will increase from 31.57% to 6.67%. This will do much to increase equality in the gambling industry and encourage industrial competitiveness necessary to any market. This bill will also extend and address the need for a change of rates in the wagering and betting tax. The tax will be increased to even the proverbial playing field. This is yet another part of tax legislation that will be consolidated under the Tax Administration Act so that it may be overseen by the State Revenues Office. Currently found in the Gambling Regulation Act 2003, wagering and betting tax will fall under the authority of the Commissioner of State Revenue if this bill is adopted. Most of the taxes referenced in this bill feed directly into the hospitals and charity funds, apart from the 3.75% of the tax revenue from the wagering tax, which goes towards the Victorian racing industry, keeping our racing industry robust and competitive. And this is what taxation looks like in a Victorian under Andrew's Labor government, always ensuring that your taxes are hard-earned income not be wasted, but rather go towards supporting our important state services. I'd also like to touch on the Gambling Regulation Amendment Bill 2023. This bill addresses a theme of gambling legislation reflected in the Taxation Bill. These laws do not reflect the current economy we live in. The bill takes some very simple and straightforward actions to update gambling regulations to a fit-for-purpose model that is adequate for a healthy, competitive market. The racing industry in Victoria will benefit greatly from these amendments, contributing nearly $5 billion to our economy annually and supporting nearly 34,000 jobs. The racing industry is the beating heart of Victoria. From the humblest of region amateur clubs to the grand spectacle of the Melbourne Cup, racing brings so many Victorians together, which is why it's important to ensure that wagering and betting, which supports the industry, are effective in creating a competitive market. At this stage, there is only one wagering and betting licence issued in Victoria. That licence is set to expire next year. This bill seeks that there be provisions made to allow for multiple wagering and betting licences to be issued in Victoria, allowing for a more robust and competitive market. In times of economic stagnation, this is exactly what you'd need. Industry should all be ensuring that the money is circulating through business into the waging of every Victorian and back into the economy to start the cycle. Labor governments recognise that's why we were the only country to avoid the recession in 2009. And with all the jobs that the racing industry supports, it is no doubt that this boost to the industry by way of multiple licences being issued will have a considerable impact on the state of the economy. More money in the hands of everyday Victorians. Beside this point, single licences measure was taken during the privatisation of TAB and is therefore no longer necessary, which is why we're also removing the NLF, or no less favourable funding requirements from this Act. It stands in the way of the kind of racing industry that we'd like to see in Victoria. We don't want a monopolistic racing industry. We want to be the one that is active and thriving and an effective contributor to our state's economy. We also do not want to see a shift en masse to online betting and gambling. In online environments, people participating in gambling are much more financially vulnerable to manipulation, the overuse of predatory scams. We must ensure that in-person gambling, betting on wagering continues to protect individuals from the dangers of online betting. Of course, offline betting is incredibly important to protecting our industry and protecting the people who participate in it. These bills are an important step in the right direction of gambling. I commend the Treasurer for ensuring a healthy economy surrounding the gambling and allowing the government revenue to be meaningfully and effectively used. I also commend the Minister for Casino, Gambling and Liquor Regulation, Minister Horne, also in the other place, and the work she has done not just on this bill, but on the other three relevant bills that update and improve legislation surrounding our gambling industries in Victoria. These are both fine bills to be read before this chamber. The Gambling Taxation Amendment Bill 2023 covers all the taxation bases it needs to cover. I can see no reason why anyone would oppose the adoption of this bill into law, and as such, I commend this bill to the House. The Gambling Regulation Amendment Bill will successfully restructure our gambling regulation to be more fit to the modern economic conditions that our state is experiencing.